So we're going to go ahead and just get started with a small group and restructure our agenda. We can postpone some of the agenda items until October, November, and but that way we can go ahead and just hear from Deke, and then we can forward the recording of this. So Deke, let's go ahead and jump in, and we wanted you just to share, you know, what's going on, what you're seeing. Tell us about your book that's coming out, anything that's on your heart tied to Eden and the culture change movement. We'd just love to hear from you.
Yep. So thank you, Walter. My name is Deke Cateau. It is good to be here with literally friends. Kim, Walter, Joan, Rosemary, literally friends, and so many of you guys, for me, are really a big part of the reason why I am where I am now, and a big part of the reason that I do what I do. I'm the CEO of AG Rhodes, which is a group of 3 nursing homes, nonprofit nursing homes, very important to say, in the Atlanta metro area. We have our flagship location literally in the city of Atlanta, and then we also have locations in Cobb County. We have one on Emory's Wesley Woods campus. And ironically, I got involved in this movement, if you want to call it that, a foundation, which I would not call a philanthropic group. A foundation sent me to a training, an Eden alternative training. And they were not telling me we needed to do Eden alternative or we needed to do culture change in any sense, but they thought it was an interesting program. And I had heard of the Eden alternative for quite some time. But, you know, that training program was literally one of my aha moments, one of my first aha moments. And Walter and Kim, who are on, were definitely central teaching that program, as they've done several since. And my aha moment actually in that program came when a CNA from a group, and at the end of the Eden programs, at least back then, at the end of these programs, we were asked to go into groups and decide, you know, how you're going to go back to your communities and make this great grand change. And I remember sitting back and watching another group present, and the CNA was presenting, and she did a great job. She listed all the ways she was going to make a change, and she was going to do training, and she was going to get her folks together and really corral and canvas them around it. And I remember thinking to myself, I was an administrator then, and I remember thinking to myself, there's no way possible a CNA is going to be able to do that. In fact, the young lady may be getting herself fired by taking on some responsibilities which she did not have the authority or the approval to do. And it hit me like a ton of bricks that for our nursing homes, and I speak very selfishly on behalf of nursing homes here, for our nursing homes to change, we needed leadership from the top to buy into culture change and to empower staff to do this. So several years later, I am now the CEO of the same organization, and I now serve on the Eden Alternative Board. But several years later, my biggest reflections are around staff, are around our care partners, and are around how do we empower them. And we teach it a lot in Eden. We teach it a lot in the culture change movement in general, but I don't think we're doing it in the right way. And I think we need to find a way to properly show our staff what they mean to us. I think COVID has forced some of this on us, but I think shame on us because we have not figured this out before. So when I got into this industry, and Kim, you've heard me say this publicly already, and it still is so, the mantra in this industry then and now has always been, the resident is always right. And a lot of people don't like when I say this, but we've pushed that. It's a wonderful customer service credo, a wonderful customer service goal to go at. Chick-fil-A, I know, says the customer's always right. The founder said, even when they're wrong, they're right. But this is not Chick-fil-A. These are human beings we're dealing with. And as much as I love all 300, 400 residents under my care, they are not always right. So the residents are not always right. I'm not always right. Walter, Kim, Joan, none of us are always right. Residents are wrong too. And sometimes they're wrong a lot. And by pushing this credo, we have inadvertently made the fulcrum of the being or the existence of our nursing homes the resident. And by doing that, we have totally done a disservice to our staff, our care partners who are caring for those residents. Because we've set up a system where they are, by nature, by description, they're the proletariat. You know, they're the working class, and all others are the bourgeoisie. And sort of my quest now is to dispel this. So I've said it publicly again, that I think at AG Rhodes, our staff, one, were always essential. It didn't take COVID to make us know that our staff were essential. And I think they're the secret sauce. And I think a philosophy which lets the staff know that they are as important as our residents are. And even more importantly so, because we trust them when we're not here to take care of our residents. I think adopting that approach shows them our appreciation for them, shows them how much we care for them. So we have a long way to go. I think there's so many structures in the industry that have caused this to happen. I think the reality is, and it's not any of our faults on this call here, but the reality is that we have created a system where, again, we have classes, and we have direct care staff where again are the lower class, and we have senior management and up and residents that are the upper class. And I think the reality is even our pay structures surely show that as well. And we have created structures where our direct care staff are underpaid. And in some cases, they can't even make a livable wage. And other industries have been ahead of us. So when we talk now about, well, you could go to McDonald's and make $15 an hour, or you could go to Wendy's and make $15, or we say that, in a negative way, as if McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or Wendy's is doing something they shouldn't be to take staff. But basically what they're doing is they're showing their employees their appreciation for them and their value for their work they do. So we have to work on that. One of the proudest things, I think has happened under my tenure as CEO of AG Rhodes is effective July 1st, we raised our minimum wage for our direct care CNAs to $15 an hour, and our direct care LPNs to $26 an hour. And I'll be honest, that's a heavy cost. I don't know how we're going to pay for it. We have not been able to do so for custodial staff, who I think are just as important. And my promise to them is this fiscal year, they are next on my list. Not that I value them any less, but I do value and respect the fact that closest touch to our elders are the CNAs, the LPNs. And I would love to see more organizations take this up. For one, it wouldn't make me look as bad if this doesn't work out. And for two, it's just something that's deserved, and it's something that's needed, and that's far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I think the idea of the whole idea of care partnership is so critical to really take a serious look at that, because when you think about the resident or the client as a part of a care partner team, and you think about everybody that's touching their lives. And I love what Eden reminds us that, care partnership is about quality of life and well-being for all care partners. Yeah. So when you start thinking about that, you're thinking about staff, of course, the residents, but you're thinking about all the staff, you're thinking about volunteers, you're thinking about families, you're thinking about inside and outside customers that are coming in, people's Sunday school classes, whatever that is. And that really starts helping us try to put everybody on a more equal playing field. And it's the foundation of making it all work, is changing the way we think about everybody, and that everybody's important. And I remember Tad Melton you know, at Ziegler Capital Markets Group told us 6 or 8 years ago that staffing is critical in our field. The workforce is what we've been talking about forever. And, you know, one of the things he said, we always tend to go, well, there's a nursing shortage, and there is, and there has been. But what he pointed out is there's a shortage and a challenge for staff working in our field in any area, and dining services and housekeeping, van drivers, programming, all that. And I think when we are given the opportunity to think about care partnership, that's a great way to change our language and start changing the way we think about all this. And I love that you're doing that, Deke, and that you have an intentional plan on we're doing this, and then we're doing this, and we're doing this, because we all know if you don't have an intentional plan, then it's just, you know, it's just blowing smoke. And that's what we've been doing for too long. And I think that you're really modeling for all organizations, you know, for them to take the opportunity to start doing something, to be intentional about what we want to do. But I wanted to see, would you talk more about being the employer of choice? Because we know in our grant work, everything we're doing, we know that the workforce is critical, and organizations need to be seen as the employer of choice so that they can attract staff, but then they can retain them once they get there. And what does that mean to you, and what are you thinking about?
Well, I'll start that by saying it's probably a good segue. You just said something, Walter, that I didn't even, and I'll use it now because I didn't even think about. You know, when just talking about the nomenclature, the terminology, care partner, and I'm thinking to the culture change movement, and you know, we have all these phobias when we hear the word facility used. You know, that's so bad. Facility is a bad word. Don't use it.
The F word, we say, right?
Word. Yeah, but why don't we have that same passion when we say staff versus care partnership? Because care partnership, as you just described it, is probably the best way to describe what I just was trying to say, that the resident isn't always right. But it's equality. No one's always right. We all, absolutely. So why aren't we that passionate about that?
We need to make S like the F word, right? Yes, that's what you're saying, right?
Well, I'm not necessarily, but what I'm saying is at least be as passionate about them as we are about the physical structure, you know, which is that we work in. Because to your question, Walter, I think AG Rhodes is a perfect example. We are a 117-year-old organization. And we are one of the oldest nonprofits in the state of Georgia. Definitely, if not the oldest, one of the very close to being oldest long-term care organizations. And I think the oldest nursing home organization in the state. And I think we have always had a reputation. This so far predates me. I can take no credit for it other than to keep the mantle going. But how we treat our staff is referenced or is seen in everything AG Rhodes has always done, from our benefit packages, our pay packages, which a lot of times a lot of our care partners don't understand or appreciate as much, but it is done thinking of them. And I think that goes back to one word culture, Walter. So I think we have strived to be the employer of choice. And in some cases we have, but we've done this by promoting, inculcating a strong culture. I think AG Rhodes has had a benefit in that sense, in that we are not family run, but we've always been sort of a familial organization. The history of AG Rhodes started from the benevolence of Amos Giles Rhodes, whose picture is actually behind me. And his really generosity and benevolence. But since that, every generation of his family has sort of personally taken on that mantle of chairing the organization and run the organization. So while again, we're not family run, I think that seeps down into it, that feeling of family, which is another great word of the culture change movement that we evoke. We want, care partnership is all these groups, volunteers, families, board members, care partners, residents, of course, literally being one family. And I think AG Rhodes has successfully been able to do that. And I will absolutely point to COVID as being an example, a good example, and in some cases a tragic example. We did a good job throughout COVID, throughout such a difficult time. We saw so much death in terms of residents. We lost a staff member, a dear friend, but we coalesced as a family behind that. And I think that's what kind of put us sort of best in class, to your point, Walter, particularly through the handling of COVID. I do think the tragic side of that, other than the death, was that we had several very long-term care partners. People have been with us. Our oldest employee, or longest tenured employee, was with us for close to 50 years. Actually, this month would have been her 50-year anniversary.
Wow.
And she contracted COVID, and she's not the only one, and they made some literal life decisions. So we lost a few of our really long-term care partners. And I get that, and I understand that. And that's kind of the tragic side of COVID as well, because I think it really let us put life on the whole in a different perspective. All of us, family life, everything. And in the case of this one employee, I was so supportive of her retiring, because absolutely, you need to look at your family now, take care of your family
absolutely
as well.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned COVID, and it's so interesting because we've been talking to providers throughout Europe and the United States as well. And we all know that we talk about the personal transformation has to come first. And COVID has really presented in a way where all care partners, not just the resident or client care partner, not just the resident, but everybody has had that personal transformation of experiencing loneliness, helplessness, and boredom in an entirely different way than ever before. And I'm wondering, are there any specific things tied to that, moving from the personal part, now that everybody's had kind of a new experience, more care partners than ever? And we know that then the operational organizational change, where you start looking at systems and practices, are there any specific things that you guys have changed tied to your practices that have come out of that personal transformation?
Yeah. Well, Bob Kramer, and ironically, and this is so not a plug, but Robert Kramer, who some of you all may know, he was on my organization's Living Well lecture recently, and he made that point that one of the positives of COVID was, this issue with isolation has brought recognition, not just in our industry, but throughout. He spoke about his children. You have teenagers now that understand what isolation is, and understand like, oh my gosh, this was 2020 was, oh my gosh, and it's a true point, and we have seen it in the industry as well. I think AG Rhodes actually has been a bit ahead of the game, and most culture change advocates have been ahead of the game, and because I think in the intergenerational programs, even well before COVID, that we pushed, that we really was trying to encourage, or were trying to encourage, kind of helped young people see that.
And Deke, I mean, you all have done such a tremendous job of educating not just all of your staff, but families, the families, the volunteers, and then as you were saying, you all have had the intergenerational camp. That's beautiful.
So that's where I was going.
You use the principles, right?
And that camp, led, again, even before COVID, to us recognizing the best way to show these care partners your appreciation for them, or the genuine way to show them, is to show them that you care not just for them, but you care for their children, you care for their families. So we had started a few years ago a scholarship program. We've always had an employee scholarship program, but we started a scholarship program for children of our employees, children and grandchildren of our staff members. And we've done it for maybe 3 or 4 years now. But this year, in the COVID year, it was so poignant, Walter, Kim, Rosemary, others, that we had to do it outdoor. We had to do the celebration outdoor. So we recognized all high school graduates, and we gave out the scholarship, and we had to do it outdoor. And it was different, the fact that we had to do it outdoor, but it was no less important. It was no less really touching to see the fact that we had to do it outdoor, but we kept that commitment, again, not just to our care partners. It's more about the families, they're those that touch them as well, because that impacts us. So care partners staying home from work because they have childcare issues, is as important to our elders as well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so the closer we could get to this connection and to these situations, I think is so very important. We're not at the point that we started back our volunteer program, which has a lot of intergenerational aspects to it. To your point, Kim and Walter, we're not quite at the point yet where we are full scale with it, where we're able to have teenagers and stuff come back into the homes in full scale. But I think when they do come back, I think they're going to have a newer appreciation and a newer value for our elders and for what they have to offer.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because so often, and we talk about this in a lot of our culture change training, especially the Eden training. But when we start Eden training and we do, when we share with a partner, when have you really felt lonely? When have you really felt helpless? Now it's going to mean such a different thing. And another one of the beautiful things, not beautiful, the good things that came from the bad of COVID, Deke, is where I think you were going with your conversation and comments about Bob Kramer, is now it's not just those of us who are connected with nursing homes and aging services. It's been all over the national, international news.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So hopefully we can all harness this and really elevate the importance of doing in a big scale what you are doing so beautifully at AG Rhodes. You're a wonderful role model for all of us.
To that point too, Kim, Vivek Murthy, and I'll encourage anyone to read his book, and he was the former, under, I can't remember which Obama administration, he was the Surgeon General. So, but he had done a tour, this is prior to COVID. He did a tour before assuming his position of states. He went to states, he spoke to people, he spoke to sick people, he's trying to inform his policy as a Surgeon General. And he identified the biggest issue, the biggest pandemic issue. He described it in terms similar to being of a pandemic nature, was loneliness. And he couldn't understand it. And he said that was a thread through every level of society that he visited and spoke to. And this is before COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's so true that I know that there's a geriatric psychiatrist at Emory who has, been telling us for 6 or 8 years, he said the biggest, he sees patients and that are older adults. And he said one of the biggest issues is loneliness. Even people that are coming there, are having conversations about that. So, one of the things I love about Eden is the difference, in solitude, because there's a lot of people that enjoy, being alone and being quiet, but they're not lonely. And then there's people that, we try to get everybody in a room and act like we're doing something, but there can be people in a room of a lot of people and they're still lonely. So it really gives us a lot to think about is, what do we mean when we talk about that, and how can we look at each person as an individual and really know them? And that makes me think of the domains of well-being. And I just find myself talking about that every time, the domains of well-being for all care partners, being totally tied to a quality of life experience, because we want all care partners to be experiencing quality of life, not just the residents, that are in our communities or in our nursing centers. So I think, when you start breaking that down and you start thinking about even employees, staff, are they experiencing joy in their work? Have we empowered them to where they experience joy? Or do they feel connected to all the other care partners? Or are they being isolated and not included for some reason? Do we know them deeply so that we know that they may have, 2 small children, or they may be taking care of, older parents, or they may be, all these things. How do we know them? And the domains of well-being, they're becoming more and more significant to me the more I think about them.
So that's you go on, Kim.
I was just going to say that really, being aware of that is what you all are doing as you are really putting your staff and viewing them as care partners and building a community. You're caring about the well-being of them and their families and their grandchildren, like the story you said of the graduation. And something else you were saying when you were talking about, Deke, that the resident isn't always right. It made me think about something we've talked about before, is that model, the resident is always right, really goes to the real estate hospitality model, where people are just really renting out rooms. They're not thinking of the elders and the staff that are the key components. They're just thinking of it more from a real estate view instead of creating home. And that's another vital piece of what you're doing. And what everyone needs to do is really think about the community and the culture within each organization.
So several things here. The first thing I'll say, you're absolutely right there, Kim, which was my reference to Chick-fil-A when I talk about the residents always right versus the customers always right. That's really easy when you got to give away a free $1 hamburger, right? You're right. You're right. Here's your hamburger. We're talking about caring for an individual. If we go back to the domains of well-being, like Walter referenced, we're talking about holistically caring for individual while caring for ourselves, while understanding and appreciating. And COVID brought that out too. Self-care, became such a big important part of it. And I think the domains do a wonderful job of showing that. Loneliness too, like you referenced, Walter, is for me, that was the pandemic. Loneliness. I know the studies are going to be done, but I personally think, and these lawsuits are going to fly, but I personally think more people died from loneliness in nursing homes than from COVID in nursing homes. Can't prove it, but it's my thought. And I think the domains definitely speak to that, and not even as a new concept. We talked before about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which the domains are loosely based on. And the thing to understand, and Alpo actually says this the best, the thing to understand is those domains, that triangle or pyramid or what you want to call it, it's the hierarchy is not what you emphasize. What you emphasize is that different people are motivated by different things. Right. Different people find satisfaction or care in different things. There's a wellness index. I forget the group, WellCare, publishes a wellness index that's so empirical, but it again goes back, just like the domains, to the fact that we cannot have cookie cutter approaches to taking care of individuals and to taking care of our staff. The difficult part, honestly, is in congregate environments. It is very difficult not to cookie cut your approach, because efficiencies come into play, and once you bring efficiencies into the fold, it's almost impossible to properly individualize the approach. And that is where I think the culture change movement, Eden Alternative, person-directed care, whatever group you look at it, however you call it, comes in to teach staff, to teach care partners to get to that point of sophistication, which is probably a wrong word, but to get to that point where they are able to individualize that approach. And I don't think perfection will ever be gotten there, but you know what? It's one of those things that if we could get to 30, 40%, it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. But I think being flexible enough just to say that we're always changing, because we spend so much time talking about the journey, you know, and the journey is being nimble and flexible to the resident population, because there may be a period of time that there are, 60% of the folks in your community are early birds and want to get up. But then, that could change, and all of a sudden, there's 60% of people that want to sleep late. So how can you be nimble with your staffing, the way you provide, the opportunity for meals and all that, because, your resident population doesn't stay the same. And we've noticed this in affordable housing where it comes in waves, because a lot of times people move into affordable housing when they're eligible in their early 60s. Well, they could live there for 40 years and age in place in a setting like that. And as they age in place, their needs and what they want and the type of support they need, as well as, mental health issues, dementia, all those things can be bubbling to the top. And so we were just talking to a bunch of affordable housing providers that came together at Sama in the southeastern United States.
I saw that on Facebook.
About what that, what that looks like in their world, and how they have the opportunity to look at things differently. And some of them lock everything up, like they have a kitchen, but they lock it up and it's only open, at 2:00 one day a week for whatever. And so we were like, well, what if a group of residents want to get together and have access to the kitchen and make cookies, and some of them were just horrified at the idea of that. And so it's in every setting is what we've been talking about in Georgia. And one of the things I'm really proud about in Georgia is from the very beginning, we talk about, I long, as does every human being, to be at home wherever I find myself. Maya Angelou helps us think that, if you're in your own individual home and services are coming in, or you're in any setting, that's your home. And what does that look like, and how do you want things to function? I think it's especially challenging. I love the conversations that you guys are having, AG Rhodes, about that, and to really kind of talk about that.
So Walter, while you were unpacking that, I thought about something, and this is so interesting and so fun at the same time. So Rosemary's on here as well, and so is Joan, and I'll be so open to consider myself sort of a juvenile in this culture change movement, right?
No, you're not.
It's true. I'm still learning it. And Rosemary's on, and Rosemary is the sort of the general, senior general that's seen a couple wars.
She's the culture change queen.
Yeah, she's seen a few wars and stuff. And then Joan as well, who's seen a lot, and has also come from different environments. Because I'll be honest, again, I speak about this from what I know, which is largely nursing home environments. So Rosemary, Joan, do you guys have any observations, any input, would love to see this discussion open up a little bit to that.
Rosemary, you're unmuted.
Well, I know I'm unmuted. I'm looking at Joan. Her lips are moving.
Yeah.
But I don't know if she's
Joan's on mute.
she's on mute. Joan, you're on mute.
And I'll say in the meantime, some of the research I did, and I probably should have done it before, just in writing my book, was on the just culture change movement and how and when and how it started. And Rosemary, your name came up quite a bit. I mean, I remember giving Kim a call, and she kind of schooled me on it, sent me a few articles as well. So I think there's something to be said here for that.
We're very fortunate in our state, Deke. We really are. We're very lucky.
So Rosemary, what's on your mind?
Well, no, I'm just inspired by how Deke has embraced the culture change movement and person-centered care, and he's gone beyond. He's taken it further, and he's challenging our thinking about so many things. And I'm just so impressed by that. And yes, you've been the shining star here in Georgia. When I moved here, the first thing I said is, where are the examples? And she said, well, we have one.
We got a few.
It's coming along, and now it's coming along. But I've been here several years now, so a lot's happened in the last few years. But you were the leader, and it's very, very exciting. I love the idea of care partners. I never thought of renaming, staff to that. That's good. So I applaud you for your leadership.
And I love one of the things at St. George Village, our life plan community that's tied to Wesley Woods Senior Living. One of the things they did at the very beginning of their journey is rename all their name badges, have care partner. So the executive director had care partner, housekeeper, direct partner, dining. And so they really modeled that where people could see it immediately and realize that it gave them a lot of to talk about with all their care partners, and it helped to move forward in their education of it all.
And that's where we got it from too, from Mark at St. George Village. Yeah. So I'm Deke Cateau, CEO care partner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really cool.
But you're just so spot on with people needing connection. I've been talking to Kim. Kim put me on to this community south of Atlanta, Serenbe, and I've been listening to the podcast, and he has such an understanding of what's missing in people's lives and what causes depression and lack of wellness. It's our lack of connection to each other and to nature. And he says that, now that people have lived there 15 years, they have a lot of older people living there now. But their houses are close to the road, and they have front porches. And so if you sit on your front porch, you're going to have connection to all the people going by. You still have a way of being connected. And it's just fascinating what he's doing there and how he's bringing us back to the way people used to live together. And
definitely.
And you're doing that. And you're doing that.
Yeah. And
I hear that when I listen to you. I'm hearing. I have that filter now.
And the Serenbe example is a great one. We have great, actually used to be board members of the AG Rhodes, great friends, the Murrays, Dr. Herndon Murray and Wendy Murray, who've lived at Serenbe for several years. And I've seen that. I've seen when they say, hey, we're going up to Serenbe, because they yearn that sense of community that you described.
Yep. Joan, I see you're unmuted. Jump in.
Okay. Well, Deke, what I really heard loud and clear is, I think what we struggle with is giving more than lip service to the importance of the people that work with us. We talk about how important they are, but I think you've done some great things by, when people say, if you care about me, if you care about my kids and my family, and going that extra way. And I think as people in our field have to start giving more serious thought to how we truly do value how we not only value them, but how they feel valued.
Yeah.
Because I can say I care about you, but how do I show it?
Yeah. Put your money where your mouth is. And you know what I've found with our care partners? It's similar to with our residents when we try to, which I've been unsuccessful with, but when we try to take away clothing protectors, or to change up programming from just bingo. I think you get a natural sense of what are they doing this for? Is this genuine? Is this not genuine? The funny thing with the pay increases that I said, I have some people that are still like overthinking it, that they're so critical of it. So because we have created this, right? So we created these disparities in pay, in jobs, in everything. And then sometimes when we try to change it, I would say one of the biggest challenges is it is not, don't think it's going to be kumbaya, let's change it, we're all happy. There's a lot of pushback. Why 15? Why not 20? Why, why is I've worked here for 10 years. I know she's been a CNA for 10 years, but she hadn't worked here for 10 years. Why is her pay on par with my, so I think there's challenges with it as well. But Joan, to your point, I think it is time for us to, I say the same thing about race now. It's time to stop talking about it, and it's time to really show that you care and act on it, and not just give it lip service.
Yeah,
that is so important. And Deke, when you were talking earlier about the class system and how we have really a class system within the world of long-term care and the workforce.
Yeah.
And race is a big part of
totally.
that.
Totally. Yeah.
And you have been doing some wonderful speaking to try and help people really understand what to do. And a lot of times we don't quite know, and it's so helpful for you to help those of us who are trying to understand really know how to go about it. And there's a huge need in long-term care. Huge.
Yeah. Well, and I don't quite know either, but I will say, again, to your point, Jane, I will say that COVID has emboldened me in that sense. For obvious reasons, I'm a Black immigrant, so it's emboldened me. But I think in my situation, the reality was not lost on me that 90% of my staff are, I'll just say it, they're Black African American minority groups, and the vast majority of that 90% fall into this so-called underpaid, group. And then we have the 10%, the few in senior management. In my organization's case, I was the only person in senior management of color or any minority group. And then when you look at the industry, it really mirrors that. That is a mirror of the industry. So COVID almost, and shame on me for not doing it before, but COVID sort of gave me a voice and emboldened me to talk about what was an obvious inequity. And I don't think we could talk about this class system without talking about race, because I think it is a huge part of it as well. And I think when we talk about workforce development issues, which we all are facing, I actually think that this is part of the solution to it. And it just comes back. I'm going to go with what Walter said. It comes back to the basic principles, a lot of which are we see in the domains of well-being, but it's how we treat individuals, not how we say we treat them. Not how we document or policy that we treat them. It's how we actually treat individuals. If you have a 90% workforce, most direct caregivers, most of them are minority groups, and you're saying that you care for them, you need to treat them like you care for them. And paying them properly brings that sense of security, which we talk about in the domains. I mean, proper pay probably touches on every one of those domains of well-being.
Yeah.
Make people feel
Absolutely.
considered. Well, yeah, it touches
And
on every one.
secure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, a couple of things come to mind, and obviously I've been thinking about this for a long time, but, sometimes I hear people say, well, I'm colorblind. It's like, we don't want you to be colorblind. We want you to see color and difference. And, why can't we be a fruit salad, not be, not be a melting pot? Because I remember when I was a little kid, I always take my crayons and melt them together because I thought I was going to get this beautiful rainbow, and I got this mucky little yucky yuck. So, we don't want to be a melting pot. We don't want to be colorblind. We want to be a fruit salad with, everybody. But I think, it's easy when I've thought about this, it's easy to be around, to hire, to hang with, people that look like us, people that act like us, people that have the same, have been in the same environment all their lives. And I think you have to be intentional and honor and really believe in your heart that there's a richness in being around, to be inclusive and create that environment. And, we do with the people we serve. So we need to do with all care partners, is what does that look like, and how do we create the environment for everybody to thrive and really spend time helping people that for whatever reason haven't had the opportunities, haven't had the education, haven't had the experience. It doesn't matter what it is, but how can we be the shoulders for the next group, the next generation, to stand on, for there to be more diversity and inclusion in our field. And I think we're muddling through that. There's a whole new awareness about that now, and I think people are thinking about it differently. And they're expanding just people that they have friendships with. They're finding themselves in more multicultural situations and environments, and really learning from that. And I think there's enrichment directors that are focusing on people from different cultures, that care partners. It could be staff or residents, and honoring that, and like holidays and foods and all kinds of stuff. And that's for those of us that love to travel. I mean, that's why we do that. We want to experience other cultures, other foods, other ways of thinking. And I think if we can bring that home, to our own environments, then we have a really great opportunity to have a more richer life.
I will just throw out there and add a few good bullet point bookmarks of this whole conversation is one of the Eden, the Pioneer Network values and principles is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I think we know where they stole that one from. And then the Eden Golden Rule. I mean, all of this comes down to the Eden Golden Rule. So,
do unto your care partners, your staff, as you would have them do unto you. Yeah, do unto the elders. Yeah.
As management does unto staff.
Yeah.
So shall staff do unto elders. And it's like that. I mean, I think that is just key to this whole workforce crisis and where we find ourselves with everybody being short and not having enough people, and people not even wanting to come into this field. Part of it is because of that. We haven't created the right kind of culture where people want to join us in this aging space.
Kim, I have, and I mentioned a few of the staff members that are at that tenure and COVID has kind of forced some retirements. I also have a few that are, for reasons I wouldn't discuss, not working now. And I had a teary-eyed conversation with one yesterday that so want to come to work because this is all they know. They've worked, these individuals have worked with us from their teens. And it yesterday it really hit me hard talking to that one yesterday. And it's like, we are not doing a good job, either emotionally or otherwise, of recognizing what you just said there, the time and the emotion invested in what they do.
Oh,
So I have individuals that should not be working now and are crying because and they're not crying these are not people that are crying for financial reasons. It's because this is their life and they have vested so much time and emotion into caring for these elders that this is what they know. This is all they know. And we
and
need,
they love them.
yes.
They love, and they love each other. They have their family with
Yes.
each other.
Yep.
Well, we have just a couple of minutes. I think it'd be good if we just limit this to an hour because we could probably, chase rabbits for a long time. But in the last couple of minutes, I think some of the things that we wanted to remind everybody today, and the Culture Change Advisory Group meets Friday. And so I guess we can do a deeper dive on things. But the things that we want you to remember if you're watching this today is that we have a lot of great videos on the website that talk about diversity and inclusion, employer choice. I mean, it's just 40 something of them. So, look at those. You can use those for all care partners. The modules, Culture Change Matters modules, we've spent 3 years developing those, and that they can be used by providers in any setting. And those are getting ready to be released to the public. We're finishing all the grant work on those, and that really helps people understand and have that personal transformation experience. It's the best. Actually, the 4 of us are the consultants on that. And what we've known is for years, this is something that we have wanted to do for years and years and years, but nobody had the time and nobody had the money. And for us, Deke to get to work together to do this has just been an incredible experience. Because we all bring such diverse backgrounds and experiences, but to come up with this product is something that we were very intentional on designing that anybody can use. So pretty soon, it'll all be available probably by the first of the year. And then we're hoping that we'll get a second grant that we can, continue working together with a different focus. But anything else Kim, we want to remind people to look at?
We want to make sure that Deke lets us know as soon as his new book comes out.
Yes.
So that we can share it with everybody and spread the word on our social media and in our newsletter, because it's going to be amazing. We'll have to help you with your book tour, Deke.
Yeah, and tell us the name of it again.
It is Brushfire and COVID-19. The subtitle is COVID-19 and Our Nursing Homes. So I'm talking about A.G. Rhodes nursing homes, how we battled COVID, which is the story of all nursing homes nationwide, and hopefully it'll add to the village work. I call this village work. And Walter, I know you worked at another village. I won't call their name, but the culture change for me is village work, and I'm just so proud to be part of this village here. And hopefully my book will contribute to the resources in the village. And just to know as well, every dime of the proceeds from the book go to the direct care staff and our employee fund. I don't make a penny off of it, which I might regret further down the line, but hey.
Well, once you have this experience, you'll be
all right. Another.
You can take it to the Daily Show and all the nighttime series and all that, like everybody. But Deke, thank you so much for what you do, and
thank you, Deke.
Please take care of yourself. Get all the rest you need, because we need you, and we want to be hearing from you for a long time. And this worked out really great today to have our 4 grant consultants for the project for Culture Change Network of Georgia, and we're all going to be meeting on Friday for our quarterly meeting and
Yeah.
launching our work forward. So this is
And I
worked
want
great.
to get together so I can have a signed copy of your book.
Right.
Right.
Well, we have Leading Age. I know you all are probably not going to the Leading Age Georgia one, but we have Leading Age National in October here in
Oh,
Atlanta.
that's right here. Okay.
Yeah. And that's actually when I hope to do I'll do a soft launch before, but I
Oh,
hope to
good.
do something official during that week. So
Oh,
Awesome.
fantastic.
you got it.
Great.
Well, I'm happy to be in the village with all of you, and Deke, thank you so